Hello, beautiful creative friends. It's Belinda, and today I am here to share a quick hybrid spread in my traveler's notebook using some digital printables and a really simple interactive flip out. This one tells a very real life story, not at all glamorous, but it's exactly the kind of moment that I want to remember and laugh about later, and it's exactly the kind of story that I like to document in my traveler's notebooks. So let's jump straight into the process. So the products that I'm working with here, this is a pretty old digital collection, which unfortunately is no longer available, but it was perfect for this story that I'm telling today. It's all about, sort of real life, unpleasant stories. It had the perfect amount of sort of sass and snark and a few little swear words in there that really were just ideal for this story that I'm documenting. You can see that I've prepped a lot of stuff already before I started filming. If you want to see more of a sort of a start to finish process of how I go from printing to page, I will add a link to a recent Traveler's Notebook spread video where I show a little bit more of that sort of prep process. I'm also using a die here, which is from L's Studio, that also unfortunately is no longer available, but I am going to add a link in the description box below to a similar die that is currently available at the Hip Kit Club. Of course, you can just cut your own little flip up piece yourself, but I really liked having the die do the work for me. It did the cutting, it did the scoring, it just made it super easy. And as you can see, I have cut these flip up pieces from vellum. There were a couple of reasons that I chose to do this. The first is that I really liked maintaining that see-through element so that you can see the patterned paper and you can see a little bit of what's underneath, giving you an indication that there are more layers to reveal. The other reason is that this is the last spread in the Traveler's Notebook that I was working in here, and it was already really chunky, and I knew that because I've got two, a flip up and a flip down, I've got two pieces there. If I was to use cardstock or patterned paper, that added bulk would just have been way too much to fit into the back of an already overstuffed notebook. So the vellum is a perfect choice here. It achieves what I'm setting out to achieve, but it doesn't add any bulk. And like I said, I really like that see-through element. I also like it adds a little bit of extra texture to the spread, which is something that I'm always really keen on bringing in, especially when I am doing hybrid projects like this one here. The other way that I am bringing some additional texture into this is, of course, with my sewing machine. I've already stitched the border around some of the pieces off camera, but I wanted to add just a little bit extra here onto the top of the journaling piece. That is a trademark from me. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you will know that there is not a single project that I create that does not include stitching, either machine stitching or hand stitching. I just love the way that it looks. I'm fussing around here because I did want to have the threads loose at the top. Again, thinking about adding that little bit of extra texture. It just helps to make what would otherwise be a pretty flat layout or a pretty flat spread. It just makes it a little bit more dynamic. So I'm getting all of the bits and pieces down onto these flip ups. So my plan is to have one that flips up and one that flips down. I had, what have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 pieces in total that I wanted to show. And I had a vague idea of how it would look once it was all put together. But yeah, although I can create things in Photoshop digitally beforehand, I'm the sort of person that I really need to have them in my hands, and I really need to have these things in my hands, playing with them, moving them around to see what works, what I like, what I'm really happy with. So at first I thought, oh, maybe I will Maybe I'll overlap them quite a bit, but that adds a really big, chunky, thick piece in the middle. And it just didn't really work visually to have them overlapping like that. It left the top and bottom of the spread just feeling really empty for no good reason. So I thought I would spread them out a little bit more. I would use that bottom black journal card as kind of an over the main piece to slightly overlap the photo on the top. And then this red journal card, as I said, I hadn't really put too much planning in before I printed everything. So initially I thought this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to have that photo on the top overlapping the journal card. These are all 3x4. Everything is printed 3x4 here. And I thought I would have that overlapping. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm adhering it down. I'm going to get the whole thing stuck down onto that page, but I'm not actually going to keep it that way. It's just going to take me a little while to realize that I'm not happy with it, and it's going to take making another little design mistake for me to commit to just heading back off to my printer and computer and reprinting some of these so that I can start again and get something that I'm happy with. That's not something that I always do. Sometimes I will just leave things and just deal with them the way that they are. But when I'm working on something that's quite simple like this, and when reprinting is really just a simple thing, then I will go and do it. So I'm keeping the embellishing pretty simple. I've got 3 pieces here which were from the digital collection. These were print and cut with my silhouette. And the only reason that I did that is because I was actually doing a bit of batch work prepping for the last few pages in this notebook. So I had printed and prepped and cut a whole bunch of digital elements and digital supplies for I think 3 or 4 different spreads to finish off that traveler's notebook. So printing and cutting just works really well for me. I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting, particularly with a piece like that WTF. That would have really just driven me crazy trying to fussy cut that. So having the silhouette do it for me is a big, big bonus. And I just chose sentiments that worked really well with the story. I don't actually think I've mentioned what the story is just yet. It is telling the story of having to unblock a really filthy, disgusting drain in my kid's bathroom. And what tends to happen, it's not the first time I've done it, it won't be the last time I've done it, but what tends to happen is it always clogs up and stops draining and altogether right as my husband has flown back to work. So that's what had happened. He'd flown back to work that day, and that night, that was it. The drain just was completely blocked. So here's that second design mistake that caused me to go and reprint. I put that date label there, but I wasn't happy with the placement of it. So off I went to reprint. And while I was reprinting, I thought, hey, this is a filthy, dirty story. There's black slime and sludge, and what better way to represent that than with some black splatters? So I got out my Liquitex black acrylic ink and I went pretty crazy with some nice big black splotches. I did have to leave those to dry for quite a while because some of them were quite thick and heavy with ink. And now you can see that I've cut that journal piece down. I've cropped it in Photoshop before I printed it. So it now slots nicely into that little position at the bottom layer of the flip up, flip down elements. And so once I've got that new little block down in place, I'm going to go and redo the date label for the left-hand side. I think I I managed to get the label off the page, but when I pulled it off the page, of course, some of the paper tore behind it. So it's the original label just pulled up, as you can see there. And I'm a bit more careful about where I'm placing it now. So that just feels more balanced for me visually, having it there than it did having it up the top. And then I'm going to finish off with just a few little X's. I used to have a hand punch that did these really cute little crosses, but that I must have destashed that at some point, so I don't have it anymore. So instead, I just found a little alphabet die set that I have and cut out a bunch of these little X's. They're just X's, and I wanted them to be crosses, and I found some cardstock in my stash in colors that coordinated really well with the products here. So I really hope that I've been able to give you some ideas or inspiration with this video today, whether it is for working with digital printables on a hybrid project, or for some interactive elements, or even for just documenting some of those real life dirty stories. I hope that you have enjoyed this video today. If you have, I would really love it if you would give it a like, a comment, or subscribe to my channel. It really does help me to grow, and it means a lot to me to have you here. But I will leave it there for now and say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.